sometimes we take a decision based on certain condition, right? For example, if a book is cheap, I'll buy it. If it is costly, I'll not buy it. So the condition here is whether it's cheap or not. Let's say if it is very cheap, if the condition is true, I'll do this. If it is not true, that means the book is not cheap, will not buy it. So these are called a conditional statements. Same thing we can apply to our programming world as well. So one of the conditional statement is the if. So we look at the conditional statement if. The syntax for if is something like this. If the condition is true, we will execute some statements. Else, that means if the condition is false, we'll execute the remaining statements, some other statements. So this is what if condition is, if statement is. Let's quickly look at an example. Let's say I'll take two variables, let's say a and b, and if I want to find out the greatest of numbers, so if I say, let's say I want to find out whether a is greater or b is greater, so I'll do a condition check here. If a is greater than b, this is my condition. If this is true, if a is greater than b, then I will print a is greater. Else, if that condition is not true, I'll print b is greater. This is a very simple if statement that I have given. If you execute this statement, you can say that because 20 a is not greater than b, you will have this statements executed. Let's change the value, like I'll change it to a to 100, and then if you execute it again, you will say this a is greater than. So this is what the if statement is. Based on the condition, you are either executing these commands or you are executing the other commands. You can also have a multiple ifs. So let's say I have another variable called as c. I'll have c, and you want to check the greatest of three numbers. Right now, earlier it was just two numbers. Now you want to check the greatest of three numbers. If you have to say a is the greatest, you'll have to make sure that a is greater than b and a is greater than c, right? So and, right, and is a keyword here, so it's a logical operator. It says that if both the conditions are true, then only final condition would be true. So in this case, if a is greater than b and a is greater than c, only if a is greater than b and a is greater than c would a be called as the greatest. So here I'll change it to greatest, right? So for good readability, I'll put them in brackets. Now I'll also have to do two more checks, right? I'll have to check for b, I'll have to check for c also. So instead of just else, I'll do an else if, right? So what it means is, else if means, so if this condition is not true, then you are looking for another if condition. So the if condition here would be, I'll check for b if b is greater than a and b is greater than c. If this is true, then I would say b is greatest. And finally, if none of these conditions match, then I'll simply say c is greatest. Now if you execute this statement, you'll say a is greatest because a is 100. So I'll change the value of b to 200. I'll execute this again. It just gives b as the greatest. Now I'll change it to 300 c, and then you'll see c is greater. So this is about if statements and the multiple if statements. See this operator greater than. So this is called as a relational operator. Now relational operators could be greater than or equal to, greater than, the less than, you are less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. All these are the relational operators. So basically you can actually replace something like this: a is less than c or a is greater less than c. So you can use a relational operator, any number of relational operators here. See this and. So and is a logical operator. So we have logical operators as and, or, and not. So the difference between these three is, so if both the condition, if all the conditions are true, then only the final condition will be true for and. For example, if there are two conditions here, if both the conditions are true within an and block, then the final result will be true, right? And for or any one of the conditions, if any one of the condition is true, then your final result will be true. And for not, it's just the opposite. If it is true, then it should be false. If it is false, it should be true. So it's like not. If I say not of true, which means it is false, right? You can apply the same here, or condition. For simplicity, I have just put one if condition. So basically what it's saying is, if A is greater than B, or if A is greater than C, if either one of the condition is true, then I'll say A is greater, otherwise A is not greater. So A is, so see here, if A is 100, it is neither greater than 200 nor greater than 300. So none of the conditions are true, so it will go for else block. So I'll execute it here and you'll see A is not greater. Now if I change the value of A to 1000 and I'll execute it, because A is greater, because A is greater than B as well as C. So both the conditions are true, but it doesn't require for you for both the conditions to be true. For example, if I say B is 2000, now A is not greater than B, this condition is false. However, this condition is true. So either one of the condition is true, your final result will be true. So that is about if conditions. It is a very simple. I hope you have understood it very clearly. We'll meet in the next lecture.